Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is another episode of the Purpose Pod, driving you forward with power and faith. I'm your host, Alan Simmons. Today is Memorial Day, and it is a special day. I have a special guest in a special way. I don't know why I decided to rhyme with that. But yes, today is Memorial Day. It's another episode of the Purpose Pod, and we are diving into the military. We're diving into leadership in the military. We're diving into transitioning out of the military, and we're doing it with no other, my father-in-law, Mr. Tony Stovall. Let's bring him on. What's going on?
How you doing? Doing well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, doing good. You
know, good.
Blessed to be alive. Blessed to be alive.
It is definitely a blessing.
Yeah, it's so good to have you on here, folks. This is my father-in-law, Mr. Tony Stovall, Anthony Stovall, Chief Master Sergeant Stovall. So this is a blessing to have you here, and I'm so thankful that you took the time on this Memorial Day, this holiday, to be on the Purpose Pod. So I do not take this lightly, and I don't take it for granted. What are you up to today? You got some big plans today?
Well, today I'm really just relaxing, taking it all in, and remembrance, of course, of those who have fallen. Yesterday went down to downtown Washington, D.C. and visited the memorials, World War II, One, the Vietnam, and they were loud. I imagine today is probably a little bit more crowded. So kind of down there the day before and really had a good time down in D.C. seeing all of the veterans and people in support of the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it's Memorial Day is, a lot of people get it confused. I don't know how, but they get it confused with Veterans Day, and so they hit me up and they say, "Oh, happy Veterans Day," and it's like, "Oh no, it's not Veterans Day, it's Memorial Day," So it's for those who have served and have gone and passed away, or who paid that ultimate sacrifice.
Absolutely.
So that's Memorial Day, folks. So we're giving you a little history lesson here. But so shout out to all those who have lost family members and people who are still serving. I appreciate you all for sure, because every day you sign up for that ultimate sacrifice, and you just never know when your ticket is going to be called. So yes, and you've been doing this for a while, and we're going to talk about how long you've been doing it and your career. But my first question is, like, how have you adapted to COVID-19 thus far?
Right. Well, so it's been an adjustment for everyone. Obviously, a change of lifestyle, change of really culture and a way of doing business.
Right.
Making the transition smoothly. When I say we as a force, I could put an A&G component, but I would say at large, everybody's making the transition. It's tough, obviously, on families, and it's tough not going into work and seeing your comrades every day, your teammates. But operationally and survival wise, we do what we have to do. From an A&G standpoint, we're in support of the response. We've got the general put out a message the other day, 7,500 troops in response to the situation, but yet we're still, as stated in the message, there's still 1,000 people and some worldwide commitment that's going on as well. So adjustments, moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward. I love that right there. Moving forward is, I think, the best note for COVID-19 is, like, let's move forward. How can we move forward? And I know with the military, it's all about strategy. You got to strategize. You have to game plan. You have to know where you're going to be in a month or two. It's all about strategy. And I know COVID has thrown us all off.
Sure.
So it's just, adjusting. And in your role, you're in a higher leadership role. And a lot of people don't know what A&G means. So, like, could you break down what A&G is for
Sure. So absolutely. So you have the United States Air Force, which we call kind of like big Air Force, and there are three components. The three components are active duty, Air National Guard, which A&G stands for, and Air Force Reserves. They all operate independently, a little differently, but we're all part of the same team, which again is big Air Force. And on the A&G side, we have approximately 108,000 people in support of the war effort, mainly the war effort, and so that's basically how it's broken down. We fall under the governor. We have what we call 5490, with 54 states and territories.
Yeah.
90 wings throughout the ANG. And so that's basically how the ANG is set up.
Okay, Air National Guard. So ANG,
Air National Guard.
You know, we in the military we use a lot of alphabet acronyms, and
right.
So civilians are like, "What are y'all talking about?" We be like,
right.
QRS,
exactly,
but or QRF, you know, quick response force. But so you're in the Air Force, the ANG, Air National Guards, and so how did this all start? Can you explain who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. I talked about the 3 components, right? So actually I started off in the active duty component.
Okay.
Long time ago. It feels like about 2 or 3 years ago, but when I did math the other day, it was 36 plus years ago.
Wow.
And in 1984. So I did a stint there, an 8-year stint with the active duty, and then I joined the Guard and came forward with the Guard and been with the Guard ever since. And my background is air traffic control by trade, what we call AFSC. Some services call it MOS. AFSC is Air Force Specialty Code. MOS is Military Occupational Specialty, I believe. MOS. So my AFSC, my job, my experience, my background is air traffic control.
That air traffic control now is really high level. I've heard, like, I mean, I know it's a great job to have, but it's pretty stressful, right? I mean, you got all of these flying objects and people in the air, and you have to make sure that they're not intersecting or you know, what's the job? What does the job incorporate?
So, you know, well, first of all, you know, air traffic is another AFSC, just like any other AFSC, and is no more important than any other AFSC in support of the war effort. Technically speaking, yes, there's some stress. It's rigorous. There's a lot of testing that you do, lots of proficiency that you have to maintain. You take a lot of examinations, and it's multitasking and being able to operate in a high stress environment. But again, you take finance, you take the DFAC, which is dining facility, you take personnel. If your paycheck doesn't get there, that's going to cause more stress than probably working in a tower.
Right.
I went in the store the other day, and the meat has doubled and tripled on its price because of COVID and the meat factories being the employees not being there to pack the meat. So proud to be an air traffic controller, but absolutely it takes every single AFSC to in support of the war effort and support of just operationally what we do.
I wish, I mean, I don't wish I could have had that job. I just wish I could have experienced, you know, on that level, because that's a good job that transitions into the civilian world, you know, and it's a direct, you know, relation. I don't know if you guys have to go through any other qualifications to switch from, you know, the active duty to the civilian.
Well, so we all are certified pretty much by the same standards, depending on the airport you have. Those are the variations thereof. Every airport is a little different, but the basic phraseology, the .65, the 7110, .65, the FAL, all of those rules are the same. And in many cases, as a military air traffic controller, you're controlling more civilian traffic than you are military traffic in some instances. And you're controlling more military, but even as civilian, you can control more military than civilian, and vice versa. So it's all the same. And you transition over there may be some things that you have to do in order to go from military to civilian, but basically you're qualified.
Okay.
You know? You pick up the mic and you clear momentum, take off, etc. It's all the same.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, you Air Force guys can switch over to any civilian job. Really, it's us Marines who have a hard time out here switching over. You know, Shout out.
No, you guys do okay. I know a lot of successful Marines.
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing. You know, we always got to mess with the Air Force.
Right.
When I was out in Kadena, or not, I was out at Kadena, but when I was in Okinawa, Japan, we would go to Kadena Air Force Base for like that's our weekend vacation. Turn up, like we're going to the E Club on the Air Force Base, and then we stayed at y'all's barracks, which was like hotel rooms with kitchens, and I'm like, come on, I joined the wrong branch.
Well, I will say that you know, our priorities can be a little different, but you know, it's, you know, for us, you know, you get the runway, you get everything. Now we do everything that the other services do.
Mm-hmm.
It's that when we get to a place where we can now, when we have time after the main war effort fighting priorities, we have time to give focus on what we call creature comforts.
Mm-hmm.
And we really go in on that and try and build that up as much as possible. So when the Army and Marine guys come over, you know, it looks like the creature comforts is the priority when it's actually not. It's not. All the things, but yeah,
it's all good. You know,
it's all good.
Y'all are allowed to have nice things. Like I went to MacDill Air Force Base, and you know, down in Florida before I went to Iraq, and they had a track. They had a track with like the rubber stuff on it. So like it was like you was walking on clouds, you was running on clouds. I was like, man, the Marine Corps, you get shin splints and stuff. So
right.
Yeah, that's awesome though. That's awesome. So what inspires you to join the Air Force?
Well, honestly, you know, people join for different reasons, and they're all personal typically. You know, for me, honestly, it was two main reasons. I needed to financially, you know, struggle, you know, being in school and college and trying to work college and take care of responsibilities. And so that was one. The other one was just to kind of get a more stabilizing career going forward. I was ready to launch into that. And I said, okay, I can take care of the schooling with the education, being paid for by the military, get my career started, etc. So those are the driving factors. And, you know, and like I say, both of those would help me take care of my main responsibilities, you know, family, etc. So.
Yeah, before I got in the Marine Corps, I wasn't so like, you know, patriotic, you know, and when you get into the Marine Corps, you just become patriotic anyways with all of the motivation and stuff. But or even any branch, you just get motivated and you get tied into the call, you know, on your life as a armed service member. So it's just, you know, you get to experience life at a whole new level, different pace, Lord, a different pace. I'm talking about 4 o'clock in the morning, different pace. But so yeah, like you said, people have their different reasons for joining.
And you know, my family, a military family, you know, uncles and cousins who had been in all branches of the service except the Marines. Yeah. And so yeah, I used to go to Keesler Air Force Base when I was a little kid. And I was born at Keesler Air Force Base. My dad was in the military. So I come from a military family. My grandfather was in the military. He was in the Navy. And so I was very familiar with some of the military ways of living or life. And when I went in, I always knew I would go Air Force. Just because I think because of Keesler Air Force Base, my dad obviously, and just seeing, you know, the servicemen around town in Biloxi, Mississippi. So yeah, there was a sense of pride there, but honestly, like I said, it was once you grow up, you become an adult and you're doing your thing as an adult, you have to make your own choices to fit your life. And for me, that's what at that time. So,
So like earlier on for you, when you, like, I know you said it's been some years now since you've served.
2 or 3.
Yeah, that's 2 or 3. I think that's just amazing in general. Like I did 4 years. I wanted to be a lifer. But you know, so when I hear people say, oh yeah, I've been in for 30 years or 12 years, it's like, man, like I was this close to being able to retire, you know, and to do things like that. So what would you tell someone who doesn't know anything about the military? They're maybe in high school right now, and you know, maybe mom and dad don't have money for college, and the military might be a good option. Like, what kind of recommendations or what word do you have on that area for that high school student who doesn't know what they want to do with their life right now?
All right. Yeah. Well, we used to actively work with the recruiting office, work with the community, and educating and getting information out to the populace at large, especially the young population, in high school. And here's what I say: I'm a strong advocate of it. To my personal opinion is that I think everyone who's able to serve should. I think it's something that it makes you a little bit more aware of what it takes to make this country run, what makes this country great, and also gives you a sense of what it takes for us to be free.
Right. Definitely.
The things that we enjoy every day. So from a technical aspect, if you go 4 or 6 years in college, college student, which is wonderful, that is great. And you do those 4 or 6 years, you get your college degree or your master's degree.
Yeah.
And you've accomplished that. That is wonderful. But also, I would say from an Air National Guard or Air Force Reserve component, if you still want to do that, you can do it simultaneously while being guard. The difference is you may not have $100,000 bill at the end. Also, 4 to 6 years, you have technical training, you have education, you've got workforce experience, you have probably supervisory experience more. And so you just bring a little bit more to the table in comparison. Again, one is not better than the other. In terms of the individuals or smarter, it's just that one has a better resume, I believe, to offer. So, and so and I know that your sister-in-law, my daughter, she's doing it right now.
Yeah, Talia's killing the game. Shout out to
she's killing it, and right now, if you were to take her and compare it to the average college student with the degree program, and you look at the resumes, the bio, and the experience, there's really no comparison.
Right.
So I think, but the service to country is really important, and it's actually Israel, I believe it's mandatory that, you have to go in after high school and serve 2 years or something like that.
Yep. Shout out to David. DJ David. That's your song right there, isn't it?
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I also believe that going into the military would be, I mean, it's not like you go in making millions of dollars as a private, or whatnot. Like it's the stability, the security, and the opportunity. And, I feel like a recruiter just now, but but you have that ability to travel the world. My first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. I'm 18 years old in Okinawa, Japan. First time ever living away from my parents, and I'm in Okinawa, Japan. Time of my life, so So it provides those opportunities, and like everything else, it comes with the cost. It comes with you sacrificing your own self-will. Like, oh, you can't just tell your chief master sergeant that you're not going to run that mile today, because according to military standards, you are subjected to everything that leadership says you have to do. That's in good standing. So, the military, I believe, is a great opportunity. I know a lot of people right now that are serving. Josh Barnes, he's in the Air Force. I grew up with him in Somerville, and he's still in. And I'm like, man, I wish I was still in. I wish I still had that opportunity to go meet with my brothers and it's something about the military that just you can't get in the civilian world.
Right. There are some experiences that you have and people meet. I mean, you're right. I mean, and it's part of it's diversity.
Yeah.
The appreciation of diversity, because you meet people from all different cultures, different generations. You learn because you're immersed into at least 4 generations.
Right.
At one time 5, but at least 4. And now that training in diversity and working with people, that's invaluable again. So you're getting that on a weekend basis, but that weekend again can be inserted right into your resume immediately, and definitely after some years in it, it becomes invaluable. So I would say that
Mm-hmm.
If college isn't for
Mm-hmm.
the person, active duty is a very viable option. Go there 6 years, and you do your time. It goes by very quickly.
Yes.
Keep your nose clean. Get all the education you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Network. You meet people. You'll be friends with some of these people for life.
Yeah.
And here's a big thing about active duty. Of course, you're going to make money. You're going to be paid to be trained. You're going to be paid every day, whatever you do, travel, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
When it's time to buy a home, it's a thing called a VA certificate of eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Buy homes, which is normally our largest investment. The average American or average person's largest investment is buying a home, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Typically. 2 or 3 things normally that is the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
1, do you have the credit score? 2, do you have debt ratio? 3, do you have the money, the down payment?
Mm-hmm.
To put down 5-10% of 200,000 is
Right.
$20,000. Most people don't have $20,000 lying around.
Exactly.
When you're active duty in the military and in the Guard or in the reserves, you get to a point you get what's called a VA certificate of eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Zero money down. You just have to have the credit score and the ratio. And you right there, the American dream.
The American dream.
Right there. At your fingertips. Just like that. So that's a big bonus, not to mention the discipline,
Mm-hmm.
the exposure. And sometimes you can tell, you see a group of people or put 2 together, you can tell one has military discipline about them and the other one may not have that same discipline.
Yeah.
To certain, and I don't want to sound like the military is in all be all, because it's not for everybody. I get it. That regardless of the career field you go into, do your best. But whatever you learn and can take from the military, I guarantee you. Now, this one thing I will guarantee:
Mm-hmm.
whatever you learn from the military is going to help you in your civilian career field. And sometimes vice versa as well.
Yeah. And I see a question here. We're going to get to your questions at midpoint. So we'll get to that. Pastor Speller, I got you, brother. So you mentioned that, all of the good things that come with the military. You get your education, you get your the home loans. I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because when I first got in the military, my dad talked to me about saving money. Like, we had that discussion, but while I was in, I did not know how to, go about creating this great credit score and like how to open a certificate, and, like how to save money. Because in the military, you're getting this money and you could be saving a whole lot of it while you're in, especially active duty. Like, while you're in active duty, you could save a whole lot of money. But so how would you go about telling a junior airman or even a military member, or even just people in general, like, when it comes to finances and credit scores, like, what are your thoughts about those?
Sure. I mean, so the military has a TSP, thrift savings 401k. So what I say is, start off max amount you can afford to have taken out.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't surpass the limit that you're able to contribute.
Yeah.
Because once you get used to missing that money, you don't miss it anymore.
Yep.
And so there's a retirement plan right there in and of itself. And financially, obviously, don't live above your means. When you put down your finances, this sounds crazy, but go 30% of what your net is and see where that lands you, and try and live as close as possible to that, and set up a savings account, an emergency fund account, and an investment account. Then if you have only $25 a month after that, or $50 a month after that, then live off of that. And that right there will motivate you to study so you can get promoted, so you can make more money. And then once you get promoted, if you get, say, like a $500 raise, at least 100 or 150 of that, and put it into that investment account or those accounts that you have, and you just keep building Right. And, and there's a financial management assistance program in the military. The military covers your whole list. 100%. I mean, whatever you got going on, the military has a support committee or office that's there for you. And financial counseling, financial management, financial classes, all of that's available.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It really gives you to some degree. Now, this is going to sound contradictory a little bit, but it gives you a false sense of security, because when you come out in the civilian world, sometimes it's not like that.
No,
we're told, hey, it's time to take a shot. It's time to eat. You're getting paid. Here are your clothes. Here's your uniform. Here's the operation. Here's the tech order. Laid out. And but to me, it allows you to be more successful.
Yeah.
And then you take all of that and you transition with that into the civilian world.
Yeah.
And you'll be just as successful.
And I'm glad you said that, because it makes a good point, going to Mr. Antoine Speller, Pastor Speller's question about what is life like after the military, because you said it makes it easier to transition into, going into the civilian side. Yeah, in some aspects, and I wish that I still was the same Simmons that looked at myself in the mirror about 10 years ago in the Marine Corps, because that guy was a whole different breed right there. Like he'd wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. He might go run. He might stay out all night and party, but he'll be at formation and, like ready to run that 3 miles or 4 miles or 5 miles, and I was always motivated. I was always, I wasn't, I'll make this disclaimer right here. Yeah. While I was in the military, I did mess up a lot. Like I got in a couple of troubles, like just, minor stuff, crazy, stuff that you do when you first get in and you're like, man, I didn't know I was that ridiculous. Like not showing up to formation or, like stuff like that when you're still trying to get used to being in the military. But one thing I do wish I would have done better was to keep my TSP, because when I got out, I did not save properly. I just got out after I got back from Afghanistan. I spent a lot of money, and I did not think let me keep my TSP here and let me build another retirement, and I wish I had that. I wish I had you. I wish I had this interview right here, that day I got out, so I would know, oh man, what, let me make sure I roll my TSP into something else, or what, let me see what I can do with that. So I hope you guys, even if you're not in the military, please take note of that as well. Make sure that you're managing your monies the right way so that you can be successful in the future. So Pastor Speller asked, he said, what is life like after the military? So you were active duty for when you first got in, correct?
Right. And so I went guard but I went full-time guard at some point. But as far as after the military, obviously I can't speak to it in full right now because I'm still actively active guard but here's what I do know. Being in the military afforded me to get my degree, working on my master's. It allowed for me to get a technical qualification in air traffic control. Not that I necessarily will do air traffic after I leave the military. It's the accomplishment thereof and the experience and background. Also, the military has afforded networking opportunities. Sometimes it's not all what you know, but who you know.
Right.
And you meet a host of people that way. That's another great advantage. And going into the civilian sector, some things I'll be able to take, some things you got to leave behind because you're no longer in the military. And I've seen situations. I saw where this pastor who was in the military, he was a pastor in the military. He would go to the church and he would preach. He was still in the military. He retired. They made him head pastor, and he tried to run the church like it was a military, and it didn't work.
It did not work.
It did not work. It absolutely did not work. So, but at the same time, there are some things that you can bring.
Right.
The discipline, the organization, the commitment, dedication, the strategic oversight, and those differences between the different levels of leadership, tactical, operational, and strategic. And you can kind of implement that into a portfolio that will serve that particular civilian company.
Yeah. And you're right. Like we can't. I know when I first got out, I was super marching all over the place. I was all trying to make sure my posture was good.
Right.
I was, and then like I start my nonprofit or dealing with my nephews and
Right.
stuff. I'm trying to be militant with them and militant in relationships. And I was like, oh, this is not working.
Right.
You can't use that. You can take, like you said, certain things, but you can't use everything. And on that, on the transition part, like after the military, I'd say very quickly is that it's difficult to transition into the civilian world, and especially if you don't have a great community outside the community or outside of the military that are open for you to like come in and start working, because the transition sucked for me. I applied for numerous jobs. I did all of that after I got back from Afghanistan, and I couldn't even get a retail job. I don't know if God was just locking down all the doors until I moved to Charlotte, but it was just really hard. But I think that if, I wish that at that point in time, the internet was the way it was right now, and that these groups were formed for veterans after they got out, and that I knew about it. I think it was someone's there. You have your you have your VSOs and other things that are for veterans, but a lot of services are not highlighted enough for us to transition smoothly into the civilian world.
Right. So, and so there's a TAP program, which is Transition Assistance Program.
Right.
And they really walk you through that step by step in getting you transition from the military into the civilian sector, to include all the facets and aspects of transitioning into a civilian job, from resume writing to organizational culture. They give you briefings, et cetera, et cetera. So the resources are there to cover those things. And but yeah, nonetheless, it still is a challenge. It still is a process. And but I think I think going through the military experience, it does, I would say, well equip you to, because when you're in theater and you're in a wartime environment and you're in a cot, you're on a cot in a tent, there's bombs coming over,
MREs,
meals ready to eat, and you're in that environment, and they're coming over the fence. You see the guys going outside the wire, very hostile environments. That makes you mentally strong and tough and disciplined. It builds a certain perseverance and grit about you, where when you come back and you have to deal with, this transitional dilemma or challenge, the same attributes that it took to survive over in theater, wartime, those are some of the same things you use to get past this challenge or dilemma. And it's not, and anything that's set before you, it's not whether or not you can overcome it. It's just, how do you overcome it?
How do you overcome it? And that's what we're, so I'm glad you asked that. So you're saying all the right stuff right here, Pops. How? So, because I was going to go into, the 3 qualities of being a great leader. Like what 3 qualities do you believe are the things that make you or makes anyone a great leader in the military and outside of the military?
So I would say 3 things. First of all, you got to be foundational, and that's a broad umbrella. And I'll kind of emphasize what I mean by that. In some cases, you need to be technically qualified, and I say / well professionally developed. And then the third thing I would say would be, the people umbrella. So the first thing, when I say being foundational, you have good values about yourself, and integrity, having being authentic and having courageous leadership, and being foundationally sound on your leadership principles, and et cetera, those types of things. So if you got to have a strong foundation for those things, because if those things aren't right, what you do when you go forward, it's not going to really matter, because eventually there's going to be cracks, and foundation eventually going to be exposed, or the lack thereof.
Right.
So building the house, foundation, most important thing.
Yeah. And so have you ever experienced like bad leadership while you've been in the military?
Everybody has, but everybody has. And, but here's the thing about bad leadership. You can learn just as much from bad leadership as you can good leadership. And bad leadership is there to help you grow, to help you develop, to help you be stronger, better. And again, it depends on not what happens, but how you respond to it. Everybody has failed at responding to certain adversity or negative things, but you learn from it and you press on. And so I have, just like everybody else.
Right.
And you may ask some people, and they may say, "Hey, Chief Stovall was a bad leader."
Right.
Well,
I didn't say right, like right, but like right, like.
they say that, but at the same time, you got to try and understand also that with your leadership is making decisions at a level that you're not, where you aren't privy to, that they're making from a perspective that you may not have.
Right.
You may not completely understand it, and all the time. But then there are some leaders who, again, that foundational part of their leadership is just not well intended or in place. And those kinds of things, you got to have that foundation. That's why I say that foundation is important. So as, you, like, for instance, as a leader, you got to be trusted and respected. You got to be able, people got to believe that you have integrity. So when you say something, you're not lying. And you got to be authentic about your approach, because if people feel like you're faking it till you make it, or you're just doing it for an ulterior motive, it works. So that's part of that foundational building to your leadership. Now, the second thing I said was technically qualified, professionally well developed, right? So in the air traffic control career field, right, you have some controllers most controllers who got by, I mean, they really, like, boom, they did what they had to do. Yeah. And it was rigorous, it was hard, but they made it the right way, the way, the honest way, and no crap. Okay, here's your ticket. And it's a pride thing. You people who make it, and I mean, the bar was shaking, or they kind of network, good old boy program, whatever. And that word gets around. Yeah. So, and it's tougher for you to command the respect of people when people know that, hey, you know what, you really didn't go through the rigors. You really didn't make it. You just had somebody hook you up. So being technically qualified, you don't have to have all the right answers every time. You just you got to know your job. Being professionally developed, especially in this day and age, is very important, because you have the younger generation and above. They're much more educated now. They have more education you have. You have to be developed enough so you can mentor and lay down a path and a foundation for them to walk, and so they can learn. And when you put that technical qual, the professional development, and your experience together, it comes out in the form of wisdom. A lot of times you give things that you won't find in a book. Right. You can point in a direction where people can go, and it's just based on some things that you just know as you go through. So that would be the second thing. And the thing, which is probably the most important, they're all important, but I put this high as people. You gotta genuinely care about people. You gotta look at service as a inverted V. I mean, you got like a V, not inverted, but a V. You're at the bottom, and it's like this. It's like that. It gets higher because the lower you go, the higher you go up. The lower it is, the lower the rank, the more people. So you have to really espouse service and taking care of people, and genuinely like people and want people to be successful. And you got to put yourself behind all of that. I have seen some leaders who they're so busy trying to make the next promotion, trying to get to the next job, the next position, and they fail to take care of people. And in every military outfit, you have what is called a mission. And the only way that mission gets done is eventually or foremost by some person or member. So people get the mission done. And so you got to be transformational, but at the same time, you have to be able to make the hard calls too. And I've had to make some hard calls over my career with people, and it wasn't personal at all. It was the right and best thing at that time that I felt based off of everything. Or people may not have agreed with it. And the last thing about people, and I'll stop here. You got to stand up for your people. Your people need to know that when that door closes and you're in there with leadership, that you are representing them in the right manner, that you are standing up for what's right, that you are looking out after their best interests, and that you're not compromising, selling them the river for your good, especially, or out of just not having the courage, And courage is not the absence of fear; it's doing what's right in spite of the fear. You can still be a little fearful, but still go and do what's right or what's best in spite of that fear. Because we all get a little fearful. We're all a little scared at times about things, and we're all a little concerned. But you still got to do the right thing by your folks.
The right thing, exactly. And that's the worst leader, I would say, is someone who doesn't do the right thing for the people up under them. Because I mean, we've got screwed over a couple of times in the military while I was in the Marine Corps because so-and-so just wanted to appear to be on top of the game and like, oh yeah, I'm a sign our up for everything. Like, oh, you want to pick up trash? Yeah, we'll do it. Oh, you got to fill it up? We'll do it. So it's just like, all right, yeah, maybe not all of that. Like, like still stand up for us in there and say, you know what, my guys are tired. We're going to take a break or something, But one thing I wanted to say about great leadership and taking, so like you mentioned that last part of being able to stand up for your subordinates and standing up for the people that are under you. I had my Chief Warrant Officer Ali. I'm pretty sure he got promoted or something before that, but Chief Warrant Officer Ali, he used to come around the bay. He'd be like, "Devil dog, what did you do for my Marine Corps today?" And like you would always run from that guy because if you wasn't doing nothing and you didn't have nothing to say to him, you didn't want to see him. So I love that though. After the fact, I love that, and I think a lot of them
appreciate it.
Yeah, you appreciate it because it held you accountable. He was like, "Hey, Devil dog, what are you doing for my Marine Corps today? Like, why are you guys just sitting around? Let's get it moving." So that kind of leadership, you don't get that in the civilian world. You may get it in a different package, like, "Hey guys, get to work or you're fired." But the Marine Corps, or in the military, you just have that like, hey, squared away. You know what your job is. We have a statement question. Okay, from your son, Anthony Stovall-The. Leadership, natural skill or God-given gift? Ooh, I like that.
Well, I think it's a combination thereof. Some people are just naturally born leaders, and sometimes you have to work at it a little harder. I think, far as I think we are all given gifts by God through the way that we're created, DNA-wise, attributes and characteristics wise. Regardless if it's natural or God-given, I think the most important thing is for you to realize what your passion is in that area and what your responsibility is, and what you do, whatever you need to do to fill that what we call delta in the military, which is the gap between where you are and where you want to be or where you need to be. Then right there is hard work, confidence, perseverance, and all of those things. So some get it easier than others. But what I learned, just through sports and whatnot, I was never the fastest, biggest, tallest, strongest, none of that. But I just wanted it more than the next person. And and my philosophy was, if you're willing to get up as early as I'm willing to get up and go to bed as late and work as hard in between those two time frames and sacrifice when I'm willing to sacrifice, then you can have it. But I don't think you are. Yeah. So And to me, that's what leadership is. You know, you can espouse that kind of that kind of attitude, that tone about people, because leadership, you know, no people, no leadership. You know, you got to have people to lead, and so really the people are on the back end of that, and so it's not so much, you know, how you get it is what you do with it, you know, and so, but I would say, you know, it's a combination there. That's a good question, Anthony. I think it's a combination, you know, natural skills, some of it's God-given, you know, and there's a fine line between, you know, natural skill and God-given.
Right.
You know? Either way, they both have to be sharpened. And, developed to a higher level.
Yeah. Either way, they both have to be. Y'all, you dropping some gems right there. That's right there. Either way, they both have to be sharpened, man. So, you know, one thing that I remember about being in the military was that there's this one time I was going up for promotion, meritorious promotion. They were, you know, so they do the whole battalion board, company board, platoon, you know, so you do it like that. And I did not think I was good enough. I was like, man, I'm just a basic Marine. I can run, I can do pull-ups, push-ups, I can scream at you, but like, yeah, I can do whatever you tell me to do. I wasn't necessarily a guy looking to step up, like, oh, you know, let Alan lead the platoon, do this. And I was like, I'll follow everybody. Let's go. You know,
right.
With that, because, you know, when you to whom much is given, much is required. So I wasn't trying to do that at that time, you know, but my, we were having a meritorious board, and you know, I was like, oh, you know, this guy's going to get it because he got promoted a couple of times just off of how his locker looked, you know, and he had everything squared away. It's like, so he's always on top of everything. He's going to get it. But, you know, so we did our platoon meritorious promotion board, and they were like, hey, Simmons, you know, they interviewed everybody, and they were like, hey, Simmons, we want you to go up to battalion and, you know, try out for the meritorious promotion for corporal. And I was like, me? And, you know, I'm like, you sure? Like, they was like, yeah, you know, people respect you, you know, you get along with everyone. Right. And so like, they weren't saying like, oh yeah, you're a great leader, you do this and that. It was just like, naturally, you like people like you, and, you know, they'll listen to you, and, you know, like they respect what you say. And that's the main thing about leadership, is that if they don't respect you, it's going to be hard for them to like, it's going to be hard for you to kind of steer that boat if people don't respect you. Yeah, that boat has to move in the military. You do have to do what your commander say and your leadership says, but it's going to be really hard to steer that boat if you don't have a good relationship with the people around you. And I had a guy that really wanted it. Like, he really wanted it. He wanted to be a leader. He wanted to be this person.
Right.
He came up to me after I won, and he was like, don't you ever talk to me again. And I was like, whoa, like, wow, I didn't do this. Like, I didn't do this to you. Like, I didn't do this to you. They chose me, and I won. And I actually won the overall battalion against the other Marines and stuff. So like, I was pretty motivated at that point in time. And I knew at that point in time, that's when I knew who I was. I was like, you know what? I'm not stupid. I'm not dumb. You know, I'm not uneducated. I can do this. And so that was just one of my experiences as becoming a leader. Because with the Marine Corps, when you're like E4, that's when your leadership role really starts. As a corporal of Marines, your NCO, you know, not mission officer. So like, that's when your leadership role actually starts. And well, you're a leader as a private, you're a leader as a private first class, you know. Sure. But yeah, that's right there to show me, like, if your desire is, if you're so hungry about leading that you run over people, you burn bridges, you do all of this stuff, no one wants to be around you, you know. So that's right.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah. And then hold on. Okay. So we got another one. Anthony says, what is one thing most important in your opinion a leader should focus on every day to improve their leadership? Good question, man. I should have Anthony write my questions for me.
Yeah. I think every day you should try and learn something new and do something different. And I know that sounds probably impractical, but it really isn't. Because learning and doing sometimes can be one of the same. But from a leadership perspective, far as there are a couple of different areas, I would say. Number one, you've got your people skill, your leadership skills, and you should focus in on that every day. It's a sharpening every single day where you get better. The next thing would be the task or the craft, the qualification at hand, and in Anthony's case, you look at his tools and techniques that he teaches the kids, and learning about that, because most organizations and most things that go on, there's an ongoing evolution to them. They're evolving all the time. So you have to be current with that and looking at those tools and those techniques and ways of doing things. But at the same time, I always go back foundationally to things. You need to cross-check that foundational stuff, regardless of the newest, the latest, the greatest, be it leadership style, technique, or whatever. There are always going to be some basic foundational stuff, and you got to make sure that as a leader that you're sound in that area, and that your folks are sound in that area as well. So I would say those.
Yeah. Great response and great question. The Anthonys are in the building. Like fall. Haley says, I wish all high schoolers could see this conversation. Me too, Haley. Make sure you guys are sending this out to the high schoolers and everybody else. And make sure you share this right now. Please share it right now. Everyone, go ahead and hit that share button. It's free to share right now. Joshua Barnes, that's the man I was talking about right there. He's in the Air Force as well. He said he got some animosity for ranking up too. Yeah, man, that's how it is. Like sometimes, you see the true side of people when you're in the pursuit of your purpose. People's feelings might start coming out when you start rising up, and that's how you see who's for you and who's against you at that point in time.
Right.
Your daughter-in-law. Let's see here. Cal Stovall. The essence of leadership is influence and not authority. Thank you, Mr. Stovall, for serving our great nation and being an excellent role model to our community. Oh, that was so sweet.
Thank you, Kara.
Oh, go Kara. Is Kara? I might have to ask her later, but I don't know if she's still doing her traveling show. I know you can't really do much right now, but we'll talk about that, Kara. All right. So Joseph says, what do you enjoy most about leadership?
Well, for me, it's people. You're able to when you're able to make a difference in someone else's career or their life at large, that is the most gratifying feeling for me. Getting the mission done, obviously, that's bottom line of the mission, be there. But for me, it's about people and making a difference in people's lives. And also when you're able to take people further than what they normally would go on their own. That's part of the leadership part of it. That's very gratifying to me. And when you're able to unleash the true potential, you're part of your leadership, help aid in the unleashing of the true potential of a person or a group of people. That's something that, it's that I'm very thankful for. I've seen it happen several times in my career. It wasn't so much my leadership as it was our team, because everybody is a leader at different levels. Right. And the other thing, as a leader, you got to inspire that. You have to set that up where, my philosophy is that the outfit or the organization is best measured by the person who is the least on in rank, least in age, who is the least in experience, etc. If you go to that E2, E3, or E4, and that's how you base that organization in terms of your leadership. And it's like you can influence the people who are immediately underneath you, but your true influence, your true leadership is determined by the people who are underneath them. So what you've done with your first level, you look at that second level. So, you look at your grandkids and you look at how your grandkids turn out. That's going to tell you a lot of what you did. So, but what you do as a parent is very important to the process. So,
I mean, that was some hot fire right there. I had to let the mic cool off just now. I was like, oh, he just That's real. That's the most realest thing I've heard in a long time. Well, yeah, about third realest ever since Never Stop, Never Quit, and Never Stop, Never Quit, Repeat. And then Victor said some nice stuff. But yeah, that was real. That was real right there. You know, because you go down the chain and you could see like, okay, well, this is why they act like this. Well, if you go back to the leader, you know, then you might find out why, you know, the lower you know, the junior Marines or the junior airmen are behaving this way is because of their leadership. All right. So we have Alexis. What's up, Alexis? How do you handle discrepancies that may arise, whether it's social or economic, to attain a leadership position? And then there's a second part to it. Do you allow the influence of stratification to be a factor in how far you go? So the first, can you see that question?
I can see it.
Okay. So the first one says, how do you handle discrepancies that may arise, whether it's social or economic, to attain a leadership position? So pretty much like when opposition arises, I believe, like how do you go about attaining that a leadership position?
Yeah. So, you know, adversity is something that is going to occur in your military career. And, you know, discrepancies are going to be there. The way that I recommend that you handle them, number one, you have to really keep things in perspective in terms of what's really going on. How does that fit into a scenario from a practical standpoint? Because some things can be discrepancy at a level 1 or adversity at level 1, then some could be up at a level 10. You have to really decide and you have to really analyze that and make sure. Yeah. Because, and the reason why that's so important is because when it's time to address it, you don't want to take a level 7 solution and a level 2 problem, because it's not going to match, you know. So that's the first thing you got to do. The next thing, what I would say is you continue to do the things that you're supposed to do as a military member at large, or a person at a civilian company. It doesn't matter. You go back to that foundation, look at your values, look at your morals, your ethics. You look at all of those things that really makes you who you are, your character, your attributes, hard work, and all of that. Stick to that. Don't let somebody else's problem become your problem, or somebody else's flaw become your flaw. You know, you do the best you can as a teammate. So, and the other thing is, you know, validation and invalidation starts with the individual. It never starts with another person unless you give that power away. Never validate or invalidate you unless you allow it, right? So when you stand steadfast on those principles, it's like a tree rooted in the ground in the most high-powered hurricane conditions. It bend a little bit, but it won't break.
It won't break.
And so you have to, you know, so you go forward with that. And stratification wise, let me just address the stratification. The far as stratification, part of with stratification is understanding the stratification process. Number one, you got to understand it, because the military is very systematic. And I've sat on like numerous amounts of boards. I've been on boards where we've stratified people, and it's systematic. So you got to understand those areas that are looked at, you know, for stratification. And then what you got to do is you have to look at yourself and see where you are currently and where you want to be. And it's all about planning and preparing. And you want the stratification. You want the stratification to use your accomplishments and who you are as a benchmark. You don't want the stratification to be in a position where it's evaluating your accomplishments. You want the stratification process to take what you've done and look at it like this, like that's you right there, the highest. So and that being a factor in how far you can go, nah. Stratification, again, it's a process, and just like processes, they're made systematically to do certain things, but rather you're stratified number 1 or number 3, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's good. Good question, Alexis. Thank you for asking that question, and great response. So Joseph says, from your experience, what is the most challenging part of leadership, and how do you work to improve in that area? Good question, Joseph.
The most challenging part of leadership, you know, I believe it or not, it's the most challenging and most gratifying at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And is how do you take people, number 1, because I think people is the most important part of leadership.
Yeah.
How do you take people from a Maslow's hierarchy of needs perspective and understand everybody individually, but at the same time understand the team dynamics, then all of those dynamics, and work towards a common goal of accomplishing the mission. But at the same time, you have to make sure, and it's really not to be not at all in a condescending way, but it's very much like parenting. All your kids are different. You love all your kids, but they're all different. But how do you take each one of them and make sure you give them the opportunity to do what they want to do, be who they want to be, but at the same time, there's a family construct there, a unit, a team construct where you have to get certain things done around, in and outside of that household. Very similar to that.
Yeah.
And, of course, getting mission done, and you got to make sure that your people are developed. But here's the hardest part of it. Sometimes one aspect of it is, just like any organization, things are subjective, right? So if your standards are up here, but the people you're leading, they could look over another shop, over in the other organization. Hey, they don't have to do all of this.
Right.
But as a leader, your responsibility is to make sure that you set them up for success, best way possible. And sometimes that's a hard call. Be it getting to work on time, getting your PME done, your professional military education done, being fit, being professionally developed, going to classes, getting done, learning this, learning that. That's a hard call sometimes. Because now people are, they're human beings, and they feel, hey, this guy is driving me a little bit harder than my counterpart over there, and they're the same. But I guarantee you, 10 years from now, be you stay in or not, you're probably, if you keep going and you keep following that leader who truly cares about you, you're going to be in a better position. I've seen 100 times in the military, including myself, where I had leaders who were tough, and our standards were a lot higher, and his expectations were a lot higher than the average across the wing or the base. But look 20 years later, and I'm really glad that person had high standards and high expectations, because ultimately I can see how it impacted me and made me better.
Right. Yeah. And I love the pain I went through in the military, from the waking up hours earlier, like if we, usually this is how it happens. Usually our platoon sergeant or whatnot, they would get the command from higher up to say, oh, the general, he's going to be out there at, 0600, and next thing you know, you're out there at 04, 0:30 in the morning, standing in formation for 2 hours, waiting for the general to come down to give his little speech, and then you go back to work. And when I was younger, I was complaining. I'm like, they always got us out here standing around doing nothing, people passing out in formation, and like waiting in the sun and stuff. But right now, and even just having this conversation, I look back and I'm like, man, I was always on time. No, I tell you that I was never late. I was always on time. Whenever we had to do formations and like you had to be out there really early, you were always on time. You may have been waiting for them, but you were always on time. So I think, making those tough calls as a leader, like that separates those leaders from the great leaders, as well, as because great leaders will make calls that, even though they might be targeted by their platoon or whoever's under them. They might be hated by them for a season or a week or 2 weeks. They know that it's going to put them in a greater position. And like you have been just relating this to being a parent, I believe it's the same way. Like if a parent says, hey, I need you in the house at 8 o'clock, you know, and you're like, my friends are staying out past midnight, you know, and you didn't really, as a kid, you didn't think about what your parents were experiencing at that time. Maybe there was news happening and people were getting shot and killed like right now. And, you know, your parents are like, hey, I need you in the house at 8 o'clock. But you're like,
Right.
man, but, you know, Jason and them, they could stay out till midnight. Well, I'm not Jason and them parent. I'm your parent, you know, but, you know, I appreciate my dad for having those restraints at my younger years. And, you know, so like a lot of that in the military is the same way. You get those leaders who make you run an extra mile, who make you do an extra push-up, who make you do an extra sit-up. And you learn to appreciate those people who push you an extra mile because it prepares you for the extra mile, you know, on that note.
Yeah, so if you're too well liked as a leader, if you're overly well liked, you're not doing something.
You're not doing your job.
You're not doing your job.
Yeah. He said, Anthony said grandkids. That was probably in the earlier part. But I have one more question for you before I let you go. We've been on for an hour and 6 minutes. Man, that's good.
All right.
So this has been really great. And people, I appreciate you all for listening in. If you had questions or anything that we did not answer, I didn't see anything here. But if you do have anything, please reach out. Let me see what my final question is going to be. Oh yeah, I have this. This is the last question I sent you to. It says, what advice do you have for leaders in the military on how they could connect with their subordinates? So that's a great end-off question that from even what we were just talking about. So how can a leader in the military and outside, managers, how can they connect with their subordinates?
All right. You know, the first thing I would say, you know, and I always say this, don't play the bumper sticker game. You know, the writing on the wall, be true to that. And what I mean by that, people, if we say that people are our most valuable asset, then treat it as such, and treat them as such. The other thing is you do that by genuinely caring about people.
Yeah.
Great leaders genuinely care about people, and they not only care about what they can do, but they care about who they are. And there is a difference.
Yeah.
And so, and from there, you know, from there, you ensure that those people clearly understand what's forward, where we're going, how we need to go. And you always answer 3 questions: how, what, and why.
Right.
If you can answer those 3 questions in any organization, that's a good start. And be clear about your expectations and your standards. And you want to be consistent when it comes to people.
Yeah.
Now, consistent doesn't mean that everybody is going to get the same thing every time. That means you're going to be fair, you're going to be open, you're going to be honest. And at the end of the day, you have their both individual welfare and best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I would say, you know, I would say there's a more to it, but I'll
yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh, we do have another last question here from Haley. It says, in a leadership position, what is the best way to motivate someone who doesn't seem to be a team player or hard worker? Ooh, that was better in question, Haley. Thank you, Haley. Haley on YouTube. So in a leadership position, what is the best way to motivate someone who doesn't seem to be a team player or hard worker?
Well, what I always say is that whatever you need or want, give it, whatever that is. So if you want team play, if you want hard work, you know, you show that, you give that. And so now you got an example, you've got a standard, and you have something for that person to at least draw from. So you have a reference. So that's number 1, more so a standard. 2, you know, try and understand maybe why that person is. And the only way you're going to do that is by maybe getting to know that person, talk to them, because sometimes people aren't team players, or they may not be hard workers because there's something that went on. Maybe in their military life, maybe before military,
Mm-hmm.
That's where that I mentioned earlier, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you check their what I call the Y key, the WHY, which is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you get to that middle layer and you look at that belonging to need, check that Y key at that belonging to, see how that person's Maslow's hierarchy of needs fit into the organization in terms of their self-esteem and whether they're self-actualized. That's another technical way you can do that. And it's not so robotic as to what is your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's more of an interactive, interactive everyday relationship that you share with. And the other thing is you give that individual an opportunity to appreciate what it is to appreciate being a team player and hard work from a different perspective. As a leader, you can do that. So let's say if you have someone and they're not a team player. So what you do is you take and you give them a team with a goal, with team rules, with the with ultimately, the team aspect having to be executed. And okay, you're the leader, and you have to solve that puzzle. How do you do that? And I guarantee you what'll happen is if someone on the team that they're leading is a reflection of them, it's going to make them frustrated because they're going to see a reflection of themselves. A lot of times people will not like other people because they see a reflection of themselves or they're too much alike. So that's another, like a little vignette, if you will. So there's different things, but everything has to be laced with love and care, though. You have to, I think you have to do three things very quickly in order to be a good leader. And this is just my spiritual side. You have to pray for people. You have to forgive people, and you have to love them in spite of, when you cross-reference that spiritually, what you find is that the unconditional love that was shown to us and that is shown to us, well, that's the standard. That's the reference, that reference and standard I was talking about. So you have to, and that's hard. That's hard. Because it's not always easy to forgive, to pray for someone, and to love them. That's hard, right? Yeah. But what'll happen is if you strive towards that, it's gonna make you a better person. Yeah. And it seems like a perfect person, right? Perfect leader who can do that, right? But that's not necessarily true. And I've been Vince Lombardi. I love his quote, what he used to tell the Green Bay Packers. He used to tell the Green Bay Packer football team, he used to say, hey, look, we'll never be perfect, but we're going to chase the hell out of perfection. Right. Every time. And it worked in Green Bay. It didn't work in Washington with the Redskins. Sorry for the Redskins.
It's not applicable. It's not applicable for everybody.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, that's true though, and I love what you said about making that person a leader. Thanks, Haley, for that question. Right, because we all run into those people inside the military and outside the military, in school projects and whatever else. You meet people who don't want to work at the level at which you're requiring them to work at. So putting them as the project lead or the lead on certain positions like that is ideal. Oh, your son David says, I thought you were a Cowboys fan.
Well, it would have worked in Dallas. It didn't work in Washington with the Redskins.
Oh, got him. I wasn't going to say it, David. I was waiting on one of y'all to say it. So, I wasn't going to pull on them on that. But I really do appreciate your time, Pops, on the Purpose Pod.
Thank you, son. Appreciate it. Yeah.
I've really been blessed by it. We've had some great guests. Thank you for being here, everyone who's been watching. Thank you for staying tuned. Please share the video. Please share the video. We need you to share this video. Get this out to other people. The Purpose Pod is every day until I do this every day until June. I go to Tuesdays at 6:00 starting on June Tuesday. So I've been doing this for 3 months straight. Every day. And
wow, that's amazing.
It's amazing, right? So I'm just honored to have this opportunity on Memorial Day to sit down and talk with you about everything that we've talked about leadership. And yeah, so I just hope you have a great weekend, and we'll be talking.
Let me say
soon.
one last thing, Alan. Let me say one last thing to the audience. I always do this when I go out and speak or whatever.
Yeah.
I just want people to appreciate the country that we have, the freedoms that we share, and this thing called the American dream. It's not perfect by no stretch, but it is a great place to be. If you start with the military actually started in 1636 in Massachusetts, comes forward 1775, the Army got started and the Revolutionary War. And then 76, we had, of course, the Declaration of Independence, where we got our freedom. Keep going, 1787 with the Constitution, 91 Bill of Rights, and keep going with the other services. And 9/11 kicked off, and then to date, right here. So since 9/11, there's been nearly 8,000 servicemen who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And that's a huge price to pay. So it's Memorial Day, and we honor those fallen servicemen, as well as everybody else who's serving, who have served it expanded. But if you from the Revolutionary War to now, there's been almost 1.4 million people who have fallen. Now, 500,000 of those people plus was during the Civil War, unfortunately, here on our soil, and that's where Memorial Day comes from. And it was expanded to the wars. So the number, and I just want to say this, the number that I focus on, it was I checked, it was 7,846. And I always put the last number in red. And those are the ones from 9/11. The reason why I say 9/11, because that's of my generation. So when we talk about leadership, sometimes people think leadership is hard. Sometimes people think doing certain things is too hard. But when I think about those guys who either died on the battlefield or died in service of our country, then nothing becomes too hard. And that's really the essence of leadership. What are you willing to do in lieu of having to pay that ultimate sacrifice? And I don't think there's anything too much, too great, too far, too heavy a lift to accomplish. And so it all stems from being that selfless leader and that selfless person, where you focus in on other people, not yourself, because there's always a greater reason or a greater impact to be made. And so I just want to make sure that those families, some close to 8,000 families and who are affected right here. And I guarantee you, they come from all 54 states and territories, the armed services. I guarantee you are close nearby someone who has been affected by that number. So I just want to say that there, man. And thanks, bro.
I'm glad you said that.
I never say son-in-law. Official. So I appreciate it, man. You guys are doing great. Proud of you.
Thank you. And I'm glad you ended with that. That was what I needed, just to kind of bring it back full circle with Memorial Day. And since you did that and just what I was feeling, could you just say a prayer for, the families that are out there right now who did lose loved ones in war and combat, and just, general prayer too?
Oh, absolutely. So Father God, we thank you right now for this day, for those heroes who have gone forward and paid the ultimate price, Lord. We just ask that you protect their families. You give them the strength right now, Lord, in this day of great solemn and possible sadness, despite the reason, despite the cause. And Lord, we just ask that you continue to protect our nation, protect our soldiers, our airmen, our Marines, all the servicemen, and really everybody who is in support of what we are and who we are as Americans. So in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. And
right. All right.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Thanks. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. So this has been another episode of the Purpose Pod. Thank you all for tuning in. That was an awesome interview with Chief Master Sergeant Stovall. And I really thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you were able to take something from this. Thank you all for asking questions. I really do appreciate you for taking the time to ask those questions and for tuning in for this hour of empowerment. So please tune in tomorrow. I have with me, who do I have? Jeffrey Cuthbertson. Please tune in tomorrow at 3:30. We're going to be on here talking about mindset, how to overcome, and all of that great stuff at 3:30 tomorrow. Please share the video once again. Go to the Purpose Pod on Facebook and like it. Maybe make a comment, make a review, please. I need all the support that I can get. Go to YouTube and subscribe to the Purpose Pod, please. I really do appreciate you all. I hope you have a blessed day. Happy Memorial Day. Salute to all who are serving now and who have served. And we say our prayers to those who have lost family members throughout these times. So have a good one. God bless. God bless America, and peace.